Hello everyone and welcome back to the Ryan Retro channel. In today's video we're going to be looking at various kinds of docks and cables you can use to connect your handheld devices to your big screen TV. Whether you're using an Android handheld, a Steam Deck, a Nintendo Switch 2, or even an iPad or a laptop. So let's kick things off with one of the cheapest and simplest solutions, a simple USB-C to HDMI cable. You connect the USB-C end to your gaming handheld and the HDMI to a TV. Using this method, you should be able to get 4K resolution on your TV, although most of these cheap cables will max out at only 30 Hz. This worked fine on my Steam Deck, but the Retroid Pocket 6 that I used struggled to keep up in performance when connected to a TV. And the big downside to this cable is if you're using your one USB-C port for connecting a monitor, you then can't also charge your device at the same time. So you're going to run out of battery, and by not supplying any power to the device while it's hooked up to the TV, the performance may also struggle. So how can we fix this problem? Well, that's where the next cable comes into play. This is also a USB-C to HDMI cable, but this one has one extra special feature. At the bottom of the HDMI connector, it has another USB-C port. And you can connect a power cable into this USB-C port, which will supply power back to the connected handheld, meaning your device will charge as you play. And in my experience, this gave fantastic performance. The one I'm using here is actually called the Need Use Switch 2, and it does advertise itself as working with the Nintendo Switch 2. And in my testing, it actually worked really well. This is available for less than $10, and I think this is a really great option. It's nice and clean behind the table. You only see one single USB-C cable poking out, so I think this is a great cheap option. But let's look at some other kinds of docks and connectors, including one by this same company. This is the Need Use Switch dock. And on first glance, I thought this looked really neat. You could just simply connect this to your handheld like this, or your laptop or iPad. It's a really nice form factor. And that gives you a USB-C port for supplying power to your device, so you could just plug that into the wall. You then also have your HDMI port here, so you could connect a regular HDMI cable up to your TV. And then you even have one extra USB port here to connect something like a mouse or keyboard dongle, USB storage, or anything else. So I thought this was a pretty nice little device. Until I actually used it, and it really doesn't work very well at all. This is an older model. It's advertised as working with the Nintendo Switch 1. My Switch 1 unfortunately has broken, so I can't test that. It doesn't advertise itself as working with the Nintendo Switch 2, because I think it actually released before the Switch 2. That means it's most likely an HDMI 1.4 connector, giving you a maximum of 4K 30 Hz. What we're really looking for is HDMI 2.0 or HDMI 2.1. You can usually find those when a device advertises 4K 60 or maybe 8K 30 capabilities. If it advertises itself as being Nintendo Switch 2 compatible as well, then that's likely going to be an HDMI 2.0 or 2.1 cable, connector, or dock. So look out for those. Make sure they don't just say 4K, but they say 4K 60. This one seems to be maxed out at 4K 30, so if you only wanted to play 1080p, it would likely be okay, but I would suggest for this video, pick up the devices that at least can get you 4K 60 to help future-proof yourself. So I don't recommend this one. And on the topic of ones I don't recommend, just so you can watch out for these and don't fall into the trap, this is an absolute scam. It's clearly made to look like the Apple Vision connector, something that a lot of people who maybe don't know much about these things might be suckered into buying, because they've seen that Apple sells ones that look just like this. On the surface, it looks okay. It has a little USB-C cable that goes into your handheld, and that gives you USB-C for charging and HDMI, which I assume is HDMI 1.4 at the very best. But it just didn't even work at all when I tried this. So if you see something like this, which is a clear rip-off of something reputable, just be a little bit wary of it. And I would definitely not recommend getting one of these. There are newer versions of this that claim to be able to handle 4K 60, but just to be safe, I'm not going to recommend this one. I did think about not showing it in the video because it seems like a waste of time, but I think it is important to draw your attention to things like this, which could trick you like they tricked me. So just be careful of these clear rip-off things. Now we're getting onto the actual docks rather than just cables. And here is the official Retroid Dock, made for Retroid Pocket devices. It's pretty nicely made, it feels really nice. It has a USB-C connector that can actually be moved up and down to facilitate different devices, and maybe handhelds that have cases or ones that don't, which is a super nice touch. It has these rubberized pads all around to give better grip. It's a really well thought out and really nicely made HDMI dock. It's super rounded and feels lovely. It has that power delivery USB-C port on the back to power your device. It has an HDMI port which is capable of 4K 60. It has a gigabit Ethernet dock, so you can connect Ethernet wired internet to your devices too. On the left side, it has two USB 2.0 ports, so they're only going to be useful for things like keyboard and mice dongles. You're not going to want to do any data transfer through those. And on the other side, we have two USB 3.0 ports. So here you could do some pretty decent data transfer. If you wanted to connect storage like external hard drives or USB sticks, that should be fine. So overall, a pretty nice looking little dock, but one that I wouldn't actually recommend. And that's because it's made specifically for Retroid products, but it doesn't actually fit that well with Retroid's own new Retroid Pocket 6, which for some odd reason has an off-centered USB-C connector. And while it does fit, because it's off-center, you can see there it just doesn't fit very well. And interestingly, other docks actually fit this handheld better than this one. So while it is usable, and it's not a bad dock, it functions well, it just doesn't work that well with Retroid's own device. It looks ridiculous with a Steam Deck, and it unfortunately doesn't support the Nintendo Switch 2 at all. The next dock on the list is much better than this. So this is the Jumpgate Dock. This is the dock that most people recommend and have been for the past year or so. It's made by a company that recently changed its name, which is quite confusing. It's either Savage Raven or Skull & Co. So this is the Jumpgate Dock. This is something I picked up because everyone recommended it, and it's the reason for making this video, because this one is fantastic. This dock supports basically everything. It's available in two versions, the regular and the Pro, the difference being that the regular version comes with one USB 2.0 port, and the Pro version comes with three USB 3.0 ports. If you're not going to use USB, then this doesn't really matter, but the price difference is quite small, so I would recommend just getting the Pro version, which is what I've done here. So this is the dock. It looks similar to other docks. It's nice and small, quite angular. If you push in the top part, it pops up, which gives you a little bit more breathing room. Savage Raven say this is to allow a little bit more airflow through the case. I'm not sure how much that will actually help, but it also gives you a little bit more support for your handheld as well to rest it on the back. Compared to this, you get a little bit more back support. Like the Retroid Dock, we have a movable USB-C port, although this one is a little bit fiddly. The whole build quality of this shell is honestly not very good, and as I close this down, it kind of creaks and makes noises that are not particularly nice. Then if I do want to move this USB-C connector, I can't do what I do on the Retroid Dock and just simply slide it in a way that feels very safe and secure. Instead, we have to flip the dock over, flip open this little panel, and then there are two little pins we can move up and down to move the position of the USB-C port. These little pins are minuscule. You have to really get your nails into them, and it's kind of uncomfortable to move. At least for me, I find it actually a little bit painful to move. But sliding them both up will move the position of the USB-C port, as you can see here. If I slide them down, it's now moved a little bit closer to this pin at the back. And if you're wondering what this pin or this little plastic piece is, this is actually designed to insert into the Nintendo Switch 2. The Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch 2 have this kind of cavity next to the USB-C connector, which the official dock and a lot of third-party docks will have, so that you can slide in there and keep it in place. So yes, this does have full Nintendo Switch 2 support, but then what you'll find is with a lot of third-party Switch docks which come with that little piece, that then makes it incompatible with other handhelds, because that little piece hits the handheld and doesn't let you insert the USB-C connector. So what they've done here is very clever. You can simply just pull this piece out by giving it a little wiggle. And it is not the easiest and smoothest thing to do, but you can wiggle it out of there. It does take a little bit of finessing and maneuvering, but there it goes. It's out now, and I'm now able to use this dock with any other handheld. And in my testing, it works great with everything. All of my Android handhelds just sit on there. And the funny thing is, the Retroid Pocket 6, once again, while it's off-center, it sits better in this than it does in the official Retroid Dock. And other handhelds that have the USB-C port in the center all sit super nicely in here. It's just so solid and so good. But there's one more reason why it's great, and that's because all of these docks that have the USB-C port on the bottom are not good for handhelds like the Steam Deck, because the Steam Deck's USB-C port is on the top, meaning you have to shove it in upside down like that, which obviously is not very good. But there is another trick up the sleeve of the Jumpgate Dock, which is that the actual dock itself, all of these ports and all of the functionality, can just be simply slid out the back, just like that. And here is where all the magic is. This is just simply the case to hold your handheld and to maneuver the USB-C port into an upright one to slide your handheld onto. But the actual functionality is here in what they call the core. And this is the thing that changes whether you get the regular version or the Pro version. So here is the USB-C connector that slides into the dock. And what you get on the other side is your USB-C for power, to power your device while you're using it, your HDMI port, which is capable of huge refresh rates up to 480 Hz at 1080p, no issues getting 4K 60. And then because I have the Pro version here, I have those 1, 2, 3 USB 3.0 ports capable of good bandwidth for connecting things like drives. My only real gripe with this is that there's this little round piece of plastic around the connector that keeps just falling out all the time. So I think I'm probably going to just remove it. It keeps falling off almost any time I take this dock out. That's my only real gripe. Apart from that, I think this is pretty much perfect because you can slide it into the dock and then use this with your Nintendo Switch 2, all of your Android handhelds that support video out over USB. It's so useful. But then for the devices like a Steam Deck that won't really fit in here, you just simply slide out the main piece, and then you can just simply slide the core into the top of your Steam Deck, and then you've got all that functionality. You can put this under the TV, put it wherever you want, and use it. It also fits really nicely into a laptop as well if you want to connect some USB devices to your laptop, or use it with an iPad or something like that, or even your phone. It just has so many use cases. I think this is a real winner. Now we do lose the Ethernet port from the Retroid Dock, so if that's something that's really important to you, that might be worth checking out. And now let's look at one more dock which has all the ports you could possibly need. This is the UGreen 9-in-1 Steam Deck dock. And as you can imagine from the name, it's designed to work with the Steam Deck. So it folds up like this and creates a lovely little dock to place your Steam Deck into. It supports it really nicely on the back. You can change the angle how you like, and then it gives you loads of ports. Now you will have noticed it doesn't have a built-in USB-C connector at the bottom because we don't want to put our Steam Deck in upside down. So instead we do need to connect this supplied cable instead, which means there's one extra cable that's kind of unavoidable given that the USB-C port's on the top of the Steam Deck. So what we do is connect this supplied USB-C cable, hook it up over to the top and into the Steam Deck like this. Then we can plug anything we want into this dock and it will work with our Steam Deck. So let's see what connectors we have with this one. So first of all, here we have the port that goes to your device. It has a little laptop picture. So you plug this one into your laptop or your Steam Deck. Whatever you're going to connect to the dock, you need to plug in here. Then all the other ports around here are available to use with your device. So we have HDMI, and this is a fantastic HDMI port. It's really, really solid and consistent, easily capable of 4K 60, rock solid frame rates. Here we have a port with a little lightning symbol. That is our charging port, so we can connect our power delivery cable here up to 100 watt power delivery charging. And here we have gigabit Ethernet. So all of this is very similar to the Retroid Dock. Also similar to the Retroid Dock, on this side we have two USB 2.0 ports. So one's meant for a mouse and one's meant for a keyboard, but of course you can put anything you want in here, it doesn't really matter. Just be aware that the speeds won't be very good, which is why they're made for things like dongles. On the back we then have a 10 gigabit per second USB-A port, which is fantastic, a 10 gigabit per second USB-C port as well. So these are both very high speed, high bandwidth ports, so you can connect almost anything to these. Then on the left side, we have something that makes me very happy, an SD card slot and a micro SD card slot. The micro SD card slot's very useful if you want to put some games onto your handhelds, and the SD card slot's very useful for me when I make these videos or take pictures. So it really does have pretty much everything you could possibly want and need, and this is a great choice for someone who wants to turn their handheld into a docked experience. So not just connecting to TV via HDMI like most of the other ones, but this is for someone who wants to set it down, put their handheld in, connect USB devices like storage, a keyboard with a dongle, a mouse with a dongle, of course the screen, but then you may also want to connect SD cards, micro SD cards, other devices via high-speed USB, whether it's USB-C or USB-A. It has so much capability here. If you want to connect something like an audio interface or anything that might be a little bit more power hungry, you can do all of it with this. But with that being said, if you're just looking for something to connect to a TV, like this video is about, I think this is kind of overkill. And actually, it's quite awkward to use for that use case because it's made for the Steam Deck. So it's made for these devices that have the USB-C port on the top. If you have a device with the USB-C port on the bottom, like most Android devices I cover on my channel, you're going to need to put them in upside down, which is of course not really great. It's just the opposite problem we had with the other ones, where the other ones had to have the Steam Deck in upside down. This one is made with the Steam Deck as its priority, so in this case, you need to put the Android handhelds in upside down. Also, unfortunately, this one does not work with the Nintendo Switch 2, which is a real shame. I do use this a lot as an SD card and micro SD card dongle for my laptop and my Mac Mini, but for me, the form factor of this is just a little bit too awkward. I could recommend this if you have a Steam Deck or another Windows handheld with the USB-C port on the top, but for most other people with Android handhelds and Nintendo Switches, I would say look elsewhere. So then what about if you don't want to spend any money at all? Because we are in a difficult financial climate right now, and I have a couple of options that you might have lying around already that could hopefully potentially get you set up for free. So this is my UPerfect monitor. I've made a video about it before on the channel, and it's a portable monitor that has not only HDMI input, but it also has USB-C input as well. You can connect a handheld to this just using a USB-C to USB-C cable, provided it's a pretty fast cable like 3.2 or 3.1. So here I have a pretty high-speed USB-C cable. It's a USB 3.2 cable, and it came with the monitor I bought. It might be something you have lying around, or it might not be, but if you do have a cable lying around like this, check if any of your devices have USB-C input. My Dell monitor that I use on my desk for all of my videos has a USB-C input, and I had no idea until I made this video. I just found that out. So what it means is all I need to do is grab one USB-C cable, connect that cable to the monitor, and then to my handheld, and it will just start working. You don't need anything else. This is literally one single USB-C cable, and I now have a monitor for playing my games on. Now, once again, you have a problem, which is that the battery is going to go down. It's going to degrade the battery, and I'm even running the monitor off of the handhelds. The battery is going to go down even quicker, but it's very easy to get around this, because if I then plug a second USB-C cable into my monitor to give power to the monitor, it then also charges my handheld too. So I just have one power cable going into the monitor, and then another USB-C cable from the monitor to my handheld, and that's all I need. Just two USB-C cables. So you might be sitting there thinking, I don't have a monitor that has USB-C input, but honestly, I didn't think I did either, and it turns out I do. So just have a look at the back of your monitor and just check, because if you have one already, this is a really simple and potentially free solution. And one more option is to actually use your laptop or computer as a display for your Android handheld. So to do this, what you need to do is download an app called ScreenCopy, which is apparently pronounced screen copy somehow. This is an app that's been around for years. I've been using this for probably a decade at this point. All you need to do is come to the GitHub page, which I'll link in the description below, come over to where it says releases and click on the latest one, and there will be download links for Windows, Linux, and Mac. I'm on Mac, so I'm going to download the Arch 64 version. Once it's done, you'll get this folder that looks like this with a bunch of stuff in there. The thing we want is ScreenCopy. We then need to get our Android device ready to connect to the computer by turning on USB debugging. In order to do that, open your Android settings on your Android device, whether this is a handheld or a phone, and you're going to want to scroll right down to the bottom to About Phone or About Handheld Console. Scroll down all the way again, and you have things like serial number, firmware version, build number. By tapping one of these many times, it will say you're a few steps away from becoming a developer. I'm going to tap build number. In my case, it says no need, you are already a developer. But for you, in your case, by tapping one of these a few times, it will say something like, you're now 7 steps away from becoming a developer. You're now 6 steps away from becoming a developer, etc., until you press it enough, and it will say, congratulations, you are now a developer. Once you've done that, go back, go to System Settings, and now you will have unlocked a new hidden menu called Developer Options. Open Developer Options, and in here, click the search button at the top right of the screen, and you're going to search for USB debugging. So I'm going to type USB debugging. You can see it actually popped up already, USB debugging. So let's tap on that and it will take us to the setting. And you want to make sure this is turned on. It will ask you, are you sure? And you're going to say yes, okay. Now we are ready. So all we need to do now is connect our Android device to our computer. And you can do this with just a simple USB-C cable. Again, make sure it's the fastest one you have lying around, which is going to give you the best performance possible. So I'm going to take that USB 3.2 cable I had, connect one side to my laptop, and the other side into my Android handheld. And there will be a pop-up on the screen saying, do you want to use your USB for data transfer or file transfer? I'm going to choose file transfer. Then it will ask you again, do you allow USB debugging? I'm going to click allow. Sometimes it asks a few times, and if I'm using my own personal computer, I just check the box that says always allow. So click allow. Now every time you connect your device to your computer, it's going to allow debugging, which we're going to use our computer as a monitor. So that's connected, and now on the computer side of things, we're going to now open that application called ScrickP by double clicking on it. And if everything goes well, it will open a window with your Android screen on it. And you can see if I slide up and down, that is working. So let's now get into a game. And as you can see, I now have a window on my laptop showing my Android screen. I can move the window around, resize it. I'm going to make it full screen here. And now I'm using my laptop as a display for my Android device. The sound also should be coming through too. So if I turn up the laptop sound, I have my Android sound coming out of my laptop speakers. And this is a nice, free and easy way to use a laptop or computer as a display. All you need is a USB cable that I'm sure you have lying around. Just make sure that it is a cable that supports transferring information like this. It's not only a charging cable. Sometimes you might have a cable that's only for charging, which won't work. As long as it's able to transfer enough data, it should work. And I'm sure you'll have one of these lying around somewhere. So ScrickP is a good option I recommend checking out as well. So then what would I actually recommend out of all of these things for connecting your device up to a TV or other monitor? My final recommendations come down to these 3. First of all, check out if you have a USB monitor you can just hook up with USB, or use ScrickP to just connect your device to your laptop or PC. Consider one of these for less than $10 to get a nice, simple connection going, or consider getting one of these for, I believe, around $30 if you want a dedicated docking station that just supports basically everything. Steam Deck, Switch 2, Android handheld, laptop, it just works with pretty much anything, and it's so seamless to just disconnect and reconnect the dock. This one is an absolute winner. So I would say these are your choices. You have free, $8 or $9, $30. Pick one of these. Hopefully you can afford it in the financial climate, and I hope you have a fantastic docked experience with your handhelds. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to comment down below which one of these you use or you like. I would love to hear some other suggestions I didn't mention as well. It's great to learn from each other. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'm sure it won't be long before we're saying hello again.